Let's talk about the business of the day as it relates to theater with your hosts, Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. All right, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I am in the virtual studio with actor, playwright, teacher, every all around theater artist, Grant MacDermott. Grant, welcome
Hi.
to the virtual studio.
Thank you for virtually having me. I virtually appreciate it.
How's it looking here?
It
Is it a little
looks
cramped?
green. And yeah, like it looks very two-dimensional.
Yes, I'm trying to play around with backgrounds. There's a whole mess behind the screen, so to keep this simple.
Looks clean to me. It's fine. You can see my giant bookcase instead.
Yes, yes. Um, yeah, so you and I are tied to a group in New York called The Farm,
Hmm.
and The Farm grows theater.
They sure
And
do.
some of the many conversations we've had have been about, shining a light on the playwrights who are bringing their work to the farm to, do what needs to be done to get them to where they are destined to go. And so this is a conversation we're having with you to learn a little bit more about you.
Sounds good to me. I'm ready to answer all your questions.
Yeah. All right. So tell us about Grant MacDermott.
Hey, that's daunting. I don't know because I'm not done baking yet. Uh, so put mix me together and put me in the oven at 375 for 35 years. Uh, I I'm an artist. I'm a writer. I used to say I'm an actor and then a writer, and now I think that's slowly switching. Being a writer, kind of first and foremost, and then everything else coming out of that. But I did start as an actor. I started when I was pretty young. Like I was always my sister and I are quite close, and we're only 2 years apart. And we would like act out our days during dinner with our parents, and I think that's sort of where it all started. And my parents were big theater people, and I grew up right outside of New York City, so it was always really accessible. So and it was important to them, so it was just always in my space, and so it felt really natural to pursue, and I just gravitated towards it kind of immediately. So I mean I have other interests, but this is sort of like what does it for me the most, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I can tell you more. I also think I wanted to be a doctor, but then that's harder. So I just decided to write about it instead.
Yeah. It always interests me. There was a time where you would think about what it was you went to college for, and you pursue that degree, and then when you find out that some of the writers that end up on television, that end up writing plays, have this whole other life that they lived, and they're using that as sort of fodder to tell more stories.
Yeah.
So it's always a good thing, but I don't know that anyone ever gets that kind of guidance.
No, I mean, I don't think I did. No one was like, be a writer. But when I was younger, I was very much into like creative writing. Like I took a lot in school, and I think like any teenager, I thought I was a poet. I'm not. Let me be very clear. I have found my poetry from high school. It should be burned. But yeah, so I always was like, I always gravitated towards the written word, you know? I was always a pretty avid reader. I excelled in English classes. Uh, and what I think was always interesting about me, which sounds egotistical, but I'm an artist, so it fits, was like I was always like in history class or things like that. I was always interested in like the day to day of people that I was learning about. I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, John Adams did this, that, and the other thing, but didn't he also just like sit in chairs and talk to people about how his knee hurts? You know, like there's this weird, the really, really kind of human angle of everything. Of
Hmm.
like I was famous for when I was younger. I would always ask whenever my parents brought up someone of note, like, are they dead and what's their middle name? Like, I always wanted to know about middle names because it's a very um, useless thing, but at the same time, it tells you so much about someone. I don't know how I just got on this topic. What question did you ask, and how is this an answer to it?
Oh
Um,
no, I like this.
all right,
I was
yeah,
just about to ask you, do you have a middle name?
I do. I do. It's Alexander,
Alexander? Okay.
which I always liked. A lot of people think my name is made up, like it's a stage name. When people learn my name is Grant Alexander MacDermott, they're like, "Oh, that's not real." And I was like, "It is. It's my real name. It's on all my papers."
I have a middle name. It's Edwin, and I think growing up on my mother's side of the family, I was called by my middle name,
Oh,
and
really?
on my father's side, I was used my first name, Darnell.
Interesting. So
Uh,
you had a double life. You're like
Double
Batman.
life, yeah. But they would shorten it. It wasn't Edwin. They would just call me Ed. So
Interesting.
I would always say that if I ever decided to become a truck driver, then I would use my middle name and I would just be Ed.
Yeah, I mean that's what a truck driver's name is. You can't Darnell the truck driver doesn't make sense. That's like no, you got to be
Yeah.
all. I think all truck drivers have monosyllabic names. I think that's like in the contract. Even if it's like Christopher, sorry, I got to go by Chris. That's just how it
Hmm.
is.
Yep. Do you think it's at all pompous to use all of your names?
I do. No, I'm not saying that it's pompous when people do it. Me personally, my name having all those letters, it's just like
Hmm.
there's too many syllables. McDermott is enough. So like, and then so then Grant, luckily, is just one syllable. Then if you add Alexander, I mean, what that's four more, so it's too many. That's just too much. So I don't do that. But yeah, I do like my full name, but it's never going to be something that's you're never going to read a play by Grant Alexander McDermott. That's if I was born in the 1700s, maybe I feel like that fits. Like that's a very sort of 1700s kind of name to use, where I feel like John Quincy Adams, that sort of thing, like felt right. But
Yeah.
no, 2022 is just first and last name,
Yeah, you mentioned taking a stab at poetry, which I did as well in high school,
of course.
partially because, the cool juniors and seniors were poets, and, so I was hanging out with them. But I had a pen name. It was a terrible pen name. I don't even know where it came from, but, oh, I actually do know where it came from. So the pen name it was three parts. It was BJB, uh, Bogart J. Baldwin, which is
Okay,
just I don't know where the Bogart came from, but the J was just like Homer J. Simpson, something
right.
something like that,
Yeah,
and the
right.
Baldwin was the piano, and so it just kind of came from there. But I
Interesting.
just remembered that being like thinking growing up, going like, yeah, I just could not look back on years and years of poetry written by Bogey J. Baldwin. It
Do
just
you ever think
sounds
back about your old self and you're like, what
Mhm.
exactly the fuck was wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, and what do you know that show Pen 15 on Hulu? Have you watched
Hmm.
that at all? I was
Yeah,
just watching
yeah.
an episode today. It's so brilliant, it hurts my soul. But
Yeah.
just the fuckery of of teens, like
Hmm.
man, just weird, inexplicable behavior at every turn. Just like, and the reason I think the show is so popular is because it's so accurate. You're like, yep, I did that. Don't know why. Couldn't tell you, but
Oh, wait, we
totally.
were
Uh huh.
all awkward? Okay, good to know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Even I mean, I even remember like I'm thinking back, or even now as a grown up, seeing what other high school kids think of as the cool kids, and you're like, oh my god, you are so not cool. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
you look like a child, you act like a child, you sound like a child. You're not you're not cool. I could break you in half. You can't drive, you can't vote. Why you're not interesting, be quiet. So
Yes,
if you're any
yes,
any
definitely.
any teens out there listening who think that the super cool kids in their class are so cool, I promise you they're not cool to anyone outside of high school.
No. Nobody, it's a secret you'll hold for a long time that you the awkward one are actually the cool kid. You just haven't come into your own yet. And,
Yeah, exactly,
you
exactly.
know, I think there was a time I was saying, like, I really wish I could have gone back to my younger self and said, you know, it gets better.
Yeah,
Yes, it
it
gets
does.
better. You will be okay. Trust me, this you're trying to figure out is because, the technology that beams this into your mind so very quickly through podcasts and Google searches and everything, it hasn't been invented yet,
Yeah,
so until it gets there, you just have to wait it out.
yeah, yeah. No, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
High school was fine for me, but even then, no, everyone will benefit from. Hey, FYI, this is temporary. Whether you enjoy it
Hmm.
or you don't,
Yeah.
no, it's temporary. Because either relish it because you love it because it's temporary, or if it sucks, don't worry, it's temporary.
Hmm. Yeah. so so you said now writing has become sort of your primary artistic drug of choice, if you will.
Correct.
When did that shift happen?
Hmm. Well, I guess I could. There's two answers. One is definitely during COVID. The other is during college. College was just because I started acting in things that I didn't like
Hmm.
we were given plays and stuff, and I was like, why the fuck is this on paper? Like, who said this was good? I mean, just really, and sort of having this guttural, visceral reaction rather of like, this is bad. I don't like this. I don't like that you're asking me to act. I can't act this. I can't work this way. You know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
this is terrible. And I think that's sort of where the seed started to be planted. That's where I took my first playwriting course, and my first play was garbage, but I still did it. And then COVID, I guess, is the bigger answer because that is when no acting could happen at all for quite a long time.
Hmm.
And someone I was working with for a play, she has a theater company, and then she was like, "I want to use COVID to sort of not regroup, but to group and to really put ourselves on the map. And one way I think we can do that is by having a playwright in residence. Do you want to be it?" So that was huge. So that was all of 2021. And at the same time, in 2020, um, I've been working with Mitch and Co. at the farm with a play of mine called Like a Queen or whatever. Um, and it's a bigger play in terms of like cast size and just scope. And they were trying to do some stuff with it. And then, of course, the pandemic hits. And they said, in all likelihood, when things come back, a 7 to 10 character play is not going to be what anyone wants to do. Do you think you could write a 3 character play? Like, do you have anything that you're working on or you've wanted to work on, et cetera, et cetera? And I was like, yeah, I have something. Um, and then they like that. And then they're like, well, what if we commission another play from you? And then so that in conjunction with a writer in residence, and then I ended up getting a manager for TV and film writing. It all just kind of like happened in concert and coalesced,
Hmm.
and that was really satisfying. And it doesn't dictate where I have to live or how I have to look, and that's really attractive. Whereas acting is like you kind of need to be in New York or LA, and we kind of need you to lose 10 pounds. And I'm like, I don't want to do either of those things. So writing has become, because it's flexible in terms of how it fits into my life, and because I'm like the master of my own fate. I'm of course not completely, but I get to write what I want to write, and oftentimes on the terms of others. But I propose a play, and they say yes, and then I write it, as opposed to people being like, "You need to write this play."
Yeah.
Um, TV film's a little different, but uh, yeah, and it's nice. I can do it whenever I want. I can get up at 5 a.m. and write, or I can be up at 11 p.m. and write. And as opposed to acting, where it's like, no, you kind of have to be here at this time at this place. And I was like, I don't like being told what to do, so I don't I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah. And the good part of writing it is a solitary act. Yeah, at
Mm,
least the first draft, until you get to uh, put it in front of someone, and then you get notes, and then you go back
Copious
and so
amounts of
on.
notes. Yeah.
But so how disciplined are you as a writer? Like, do you need a deadline to focus the lights, or do you need an idea to glom onto? What is your process like?
I'm pretty disciplined. I write kind of every day, for the most part. I try to. Uh, I do like deadlines; those are helpful, but I don't need them by any means. Um, Deadlines I find are helpful more in terms of like organization because I always have so much going on in my brain that it's helpful to be like, this play is due on Friday, cool, and then I can just be done with it, so I can,
Mm,
you know, turn my attention to the other four things that I want to write. And yeah, because right now I have contracts with these people, you know, with commissions and with the residency, I'm contractually obligated to write certain things. So that's nice to like focus it and be like, this is when it's due, and this is when this draft is due, and then this is when this draft is due. So I can kind of space and map out my writing schedule for the year because I have other stuff that I want to write, you know, just for personally, to challenge myself or things that I want to try to sell as a, you know, outside of either of those two things, as TV or a movie or just or another play.
mm,
So yeah, it's so I think I'm pretty disciplined, and but it helps to have deadlines, because I need to feel like something done at least for the time being, so I can like not think about it and focus on other stuff.
yeah. So you mentioned sell, um, and there are many artists who are so precious about their art that they could not dream of letting it go, which also makes it hard for the work to be finished, because they're continuously looking at it and tweaking it and not thinking like, you know what, I'll table that idea for another thing I'm working on.
Mm.
I'm just going to keep tinkering at this. So how do you stay grounded in that?
Uh, I don't know, just practice because after doing this for so many years and you pour your heart and soul into something and then people give you notes on it that are just not thoughtful, you sort of develop a thicker skin. Um, and I will say, acting training helped because I had such a background in improv that it's
Mm,
like you're always full of other ideas. You're never not, you know? No one, I've never been in an improv class and had someone go, I just don't have anything else to say. That's not
yeah,
how humans work. So it's nice to know that there's always something in there, even
the
if I don't
well's
know what it
dry. I'm
is.
all tapped out.
Yeah, like you can't be tapped out. I mean, you maybe today, you know, but not for life. That's not how that works. So
Well, for
it's
improv, if you were to say that, the well's dry. I'm all tapped out. Yes, and
and right, exactly. And like, oh, well, I guess we have to drink air. Ooh, air's delicious. Like, well, I had gas.
ooh.
Right. It just it always begets more stuff. So,
Is there just one
um,
flavor of air? Should we keep
yeah,
trying?
I love strawberry air. Like, delish. So exactly, it's knowing that there's never. I mean, especially for screenwriting, you know, so many times screenwriting Twitter is very much a thing. If anyone is curious about it, and you'll see people post like, "Oh my God, fuck shit, God damn it, I had this idea for 5 years and CBS just came out with a two." And
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, that sucks. Don't worry, you'll have another one. Or
Mm-hmm.
in 5 years, no one is going to remember that show, and then you can sell yours. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
you know, there's always more ideas. Write a story about someone who steals your idea. There we go, brand new story idea. What did that do to you? So it's yeah. I think having improv training has been one of the best gifts for being a writer because anytime anyone shoots anything down or is like, I don't know, that's not for me, I just go, okay, and and then just give them something else.
All right, take note, listeners.
Yeah,
Get
take
on
note.
board. Get an
Or don't,
improv
because that's
class.
my thing and you can't do it.
Yes. There is so yeah. I love that comment about there will always be other ideas. Because thinking about the plays that you brought to the farm, particularly Always Wild.
Hmm.
So Always Wild reminded me of a play that I had heard years ago. That was, the story is not new, per
No,
se, but the way you're telling the story is still unique. I think people have a hard time realizing that. Like you're not going to write so if we're all sitting in a room and we're getting a writing prompt, we're not going to write the same piece,
nope,
because our brains are going in different directions, or we're going to approach that from a different direction. And I always say this about when I enter into the theater. We could enter into the front door, but I'm trying to find out if the attic window is open, and I want to
totally.
come in that way and approach it from that angle and
I
see
like
it
that.
differently. And I think people get in their heads about it and just use it as an excuse to kind of not do
Yeah,
anything.
which is crazy. I mean, there's that statistic. I'm not going to get it 100% correct, but only five or so of Shakespeare's plots are actually original.
Hmm.
So if he could do it, like you're cool, man. Like it's okay. He
Yeah,
just took
I'm.
something else and then like did a remix or even just stole it outright. And stealing
Mhm.
is good. Not like plagiarizing, but you can't really. Yeah, an idea is an idea. Two people
Yeah.
fall in love, but the families hate each other. All right, sweet. I'm gonna do
Mhm.
something else with it. West Side Story, Romeo and Juliet. There we go.
Yeah. I mean, look at how basic clothes uh made for men are. there's
Exactly.
there's only so much we can do. It's a t-shirt and jeans, or a
Hmm.
button down,
Yeah.
and maybe a tie or without a tie. Like, we don't have a ton of options, but it doesn't stop fashion lines from
No.
coming about and saying, we have something special for you. I know
Right.
you like that other one, but what about these?
Right.
They're soft and
Yeah. Or
comfortable. And I'm like,
nor
but
does
the
it
other one
stop.
was soft and
it,
comfortable.
it doesn't stop someone from wearing something really well either. It's like you
Hmm.
just get that shirt and it just fits and it just looks so good in it, even though it's just a fucking shirt from Old Navy.
Yep.
It's like it's not anything special, but how you wear it looks
Yes.
primo.
It's like you wear it well, the other people wear it like trash. So,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, who hasn't experienced that? You're at some party and someone's wearing something that you are, even if you're a dude and it's a tie, and
yes.
you're like, God, that tie looks so good on him, and I look like I don't know. Now I'm gonna have to be disparaging against someone, and I look not good. That's all I'll say. So
I was a best man in a wedding over the weekend, and we all had the same tie on. Nobody
mhm.
felt any kind of way
Yeah,
about
exactly.
that at all. Um, so let's talk about these two plays.
Sure.
These two plays at the farm. Always Wild is the first one, and Everyday Monsters. Um, what inspired Always Wild to run around in your brain and transfer to your fingers and end up on page?
I was on Facebook, probably I was still in a show in New York, so this must have been in like, man, 2016, maybe 17, maybe even 15. I don't remember. But it was one of those articles that's from not this site, but something a la this, like Reductress, where it's like it's news, but no, it isn't, because the angle is like they're not there to report; they're there to entertain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure the title was like "One Day Walt Whitman and Oscar Wilde Probably Fucked." I'm pretty sure that's actually the title, and that was like it was an article, and I'm doing air quotes, and it was just this really kind of like sassy, pithy article about, oh yeah, one day Oscar Wilde was like in the U.S. on a speaking tour or whatevs, and then he like visited Walt Whitman or something, and then like they went upstairs, and no one knows what happened. It was maybe three
Mm.
paragraphs long. I thought it was hilarious because it was written really well and a fascinating idea. And I remember that evening I had to go to the show I was in, and I told my castmate about it, and she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to write a play about it one day." And
Mm.
I, you know, kicked it around here and there. Once in a while, you get like a funny line or an image, you write it down. Or I'm a copious note taker. I have a wonderful. I love the app Evernote. If anyone knows
Mm-hmm.
it's wonderful. I have all these different notebooks that are all labeled differently. They're all potential play titles or movie titles or TV titles. Or if I don't have one, I put them in a separate folder. Blah blah blah. So anytime I had just an idea, I'd pop it in there. And eventually, I had something like 50 notes, and I thought, like, look at this a little more. And then I couldn't quite get the engine started on it. I was thinking about it a lot. And for a long time, I was a playwright that was sort of averse to research. I don't guess because of my own hubris, honestly. But then the pandemic hit, and Mitch and the farm were like, gave me that sort of proposal of what if you did a 3 character play. I proposed a bunch of things. Um, Always Wild was one of them, and they chose that one. And I thought, I'm going to need to do research like this.
Mm,
So I don't know how I got that notion, but it finally clicked that that's something I had to do. That I couldn't wing it. And so I did. I got a whole bunch of books about both Walt Whitman and Oscar Wilde. I read a whole bunch. The funny part is that all of the books, I got 3 books on each man. Um, each one has maybe 2 pages on this chance brief encounter that really happened in January of 1882, which is fascinating. So that's not really a lot of information. So I kind of had to use information from the rest of their lives to extrapolate what they actually spoke about. So there's not a lot of record of what they actually talked about. In my play, I take the in the real life, a lot of people were actually there. In my play, I kind of put them all together into one. I kind of amalgamate them into one character.
mm,
But what's true in my play and what's true in real life was eventually, after about an hour, Walt Whitman leaned over to Oscar Wilde and said, let's get acquainted on thee and thou terms. And if anyone knows linguistics, that's actually thee and thou is not formal, it's very informal in the way that it used to be used for Shakespeare and such like that. Um, and so they went upstairs, just the two of them, and no one knows what happened. They
mm,
were up there for about an hour, and then they came back downstairs, and no one knows what took place. And I find that eminently fascinating. Like what especially these two figures who are probably gay. Walt Whitman, there's almost more proof that he was. Oscar Wilde later got married and had children, but as we all know, he was put on trial for gross indecency, et cetera, et cetera.
mhm,
So I don't know. But it was about 2 men who see art very differently, and 2 men who have a secret. And what do you do when someone has the same secret as you? I don't know. So I just kind of played with that. And then, of course, I put a 3rd character in there to keep things interesting and truthful because, like I said, there really were other people there that day.
yeah. And I resonated with that piece because, it's set in Camden and I'm here in
Jersey,
Philadelphia.
Jersey in the house. I'm from New Jersey, to make that quite clear.
Oh, yes, I did see that on your website, and I will not hold that against you because I am also from Jersey, but what part of
Really?
Jersey?
I'm from Bergen County, right outside of New York City.
Bergen County? Okay, I'm from the Cumberland, Atlantic County. So,
Oh,
South Jersey. Very
yeah,
South Jersey.
very
Yeah.
south.
Um, yeah, when I graduated high school, it was either Atlantic City for tech theater or Philadelphia for theater.
Yep,
And
that
so I
tracks.
chose Philadelphia, and I think I chose wisely. What do you think,
Probably.
listeners? Chime in. But I w- what I really enjoyed about the piece is it feels like it does feel like they're trying. Well, it definitely feels like Oscar Wilde is trying to tell Walt Whitman that you and I are the same.
Mm,
Um, and it's 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 interesting how he created Oscar created this persona, this flamboyant persona that is very much of like a rock star.
totally.
and and then Walt Whitman is a very much I don't know if a man's man is kind of the right terminology, but just very
It is
much like
in more ways
no
than one.
apologies. Yeah, like no, he's unapologetically human.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he
I would
really
say.
was that way. I think my character of Walt Whitman is a little more gruff than the real Walt Whitman might have been.
Hmm.
But when you read a lot of his writings, like some of his private letters to people, and by people I mean men,
Hmm.
um, and some of his private journal entries, etc. I mean, he was loquacious. He was a little bombastic, and wanted to really kind of offset the the lofty, almost baroque style of Oscar Wilde. So I definitely took liberties for sure. I'm not saying I didn't, but also we don't know what he really was like because how you write and how you speak are two very different things. So we only
Yeah.
have records of what he wrote. I mean, he had a secretary who would write down a lot of what he said, but that was also, I would assume, Walt Whitman was aware that he was being quote unquote recorded, by hand. And I think
Hmm.
when we know we're being recorded, we speak very differently. So
Hmm.
I have a feeling he spoke with some of the sort of quaint um, straightforwardness that I have him speak with in my play in real life. Maybe not to a
Hmm.
T, but again, how can we know? That's part of the fun of historical fiction is being like, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. And I think um when I was dabbling in poetry, I felt like I was trying to hide in plain sight.
Hmm.
You know, it was the it was high school, and I'm figuring out my identity, and you know, many things like just wading through high school as a starting out as a freshman, like I was at the top of the class at that middle school, and now
Mm,
I'm at the bottom rung in this high
right.
school, and trying to figure out what I want to be. I looked at the fact that I was not, my brother did not go to the same high school, so I
Mm,
didn't have, there wasn't a history, or the teachers were not looking at me through the lens of my older brother,
right.
saying like, I'm going to keep my eye on you. I had sort of a fresh start, which, I didn't realize until a little later on was probably a superpower
Yeah,
for me. It's just when you got to get past it, and in hindsight you start thinking like, wait a minute, there is so much I could have done more.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
It's not a regret, but so uh, to to s- to have the two of them sort of bouncing off of each other in that space, well, for one, it's like, uh, you can't deny that the way Oscar carried himself probably made a lot of people uneasy. I wouldn't say completely uncomfortable, but
Totally.
just sort of, but they realize that it is, or they're at least convinced that it is an act. So they're trying to, um, try to understand it, and trying to get through. Like, I wonder if he's ever going to show us who he really is,
Yeah, absolutely.
in there. And so I had that kind of playing in the back of my mind as the two of them are interacting in the space. And first of all, I love when a play traps them in a box, because that's what you're supposed to do. And
Yeah.
the box is, here, you're coming for this meeting, and you can't leave until you get the thing you came for, which is, an endorsement. So you have to try to, it's like a game of tennis, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, a little
You're
bit.
sort of back and forth, trying to get as much as go as far as you can, but also being reserved, and trying, but staying on task. you
Exactly.
know
Yeah. And trying all different kinds of things to get what you want. And then also what you want gets derailed,
yeah,
like
yeah.
any normal person. You're like, I want this or also that. Actually,
Hmm.
maybe I want that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the play definitely has that for all three characters. Very much
Hmm.
so. The don't sleep on my third character.
Yes, yes,
Not you.
the
I meant
third.
one. Like what? Don't worry, people who are listening. When you see the play, I promise the third
I
character is quite interesting.
Yes, and I really enjoyed the third character too because it was like, why are you so guarded? It seems.
Yeah,
It's like the question is like, he's obviously very protective of Walt because there are people who are trying to exploit his celebrity, and
and there were.
so he feels like he is protecting him of that, but then there may be more there too, but it's the way the story plays out. It We almost forget that. We just sort of allow, um I'm sorry, what's the name of the
Perry.
Perry. We allow Perry to disappear. When Perry exits, we allow Perry to exit, and then we kind of get back to this tennis match.
Hmm.
But every time that Perry returns, it's like, I'm almost thinking like Perry's a little bit of you know a C block, kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, because I hope you the and the question is, and I want answers for your audience, but yeah, it's always, I don't know, will they, won't they, with Oscar and
Hmm.
Walt? I mean, it's there's sexual tension at the beginning, and also even if there's not sexual tension, there's a clear understanding, or I think I tried to put it in there, and it seems that was there in real life of, you are my only outlet for this thing
Yeah.
that is a secret
Hmm.
that I have to keep a secret. So even if I'm not necessarily into you, you are an outlet. So what do I do with
Hmm.
that? And keeping in mind that in 1882, that's acting on those things could very much get someone in a whole lot of trouble, even
Yeah. Yeah.
both in the UK and the States. So yeah, it's I think it's a fun
No
play. I
grinder
think
in
it's
Camden
no grinder in Camden
1882.
1882, unfortunately. Poor guys. But and the crazy thing is, for a long time, this is what Oscar. We all know Oscar Wilde later in his life, but this is when Oscar is 28 years old, which is not something we really see. I don't think that was something he was ready to acknowledge about himself because he never really did. Walt Whitman, to his dying day, said he wasn't that way, despite all kinds of evidence to the contrary. So, what do you do when you have to lie, but you also need to be who you are, and
Mm,
you can't not do either. You have to continue to do both. So, how do you lie and get release at the same time?
yeah. It always makes you think now, whenever a story whenever a story shows a bully in adolescence, uh that they were hiding.
Yeah,
You
or they're
know,
just hurting for some
so
reason.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
were being guarded, and they were protecting themselves by, pushing all of that outward towards everyone else.
yeah, I'll hurt you before you can hurt me.
Yes.
I
Yes.
refuse to. There's no villains in my plays ever,
Hmm.
because I'm always fascinated by the fact that, I mean, just in life, like, think about someone you fucking hate. That's someone's dad, you know.
Hmm.
That's someone's son. That's someone's daughter. That's someone's wife.
Hmm.
It's someone's sister who they adore, but they're abhorrent to you for some reason. Like, but not to someone else. So there's no villains, I think, and that's what's so
Yeah.
hard about being a human being, is
Hmm.
wrestling with that fact, at least for me and for my plays. Pardon me. It's like, because I'm sure people always go, but what about, yep, even that person, whoever you might be thinking about as an exception to that rule, someone loved them, and that's weird.
Hmm.
And of course, we all know the example that everyone will go to. But yes, even he was loved by people, and had things that he liked and loved, and that brought him to tears. And it's just, and that, to me, that's the most fascinating part of humanity, and something that I'm always grappling with on stage. Of um, everyone is a person,
Yeah. Yeah.
even the horrible ones.
Hmm. And it makes us think like, what happened in your life that brought you to this point, and what would have happened if that didn't happen? Like, what kind
Yeah.
of life would you live if that wasn't you? Yeah, I do feel like, especially when we talk about like animation, especially with Disney. Disney writes some amazing villains.
Hmm.
because they're always flamboyant and
Yeah, they're
they
always very
just
like
have
Vincent
this.
Price.
Yeah, so they have this personality that's just so big, and you're like, I love you.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Even though I
attractive.
know you're gonna get your just desserts towards the end, you're gonna get what's coming to you because of how you're handling this. You almost wish that everybody could win,
Yeah.
in the situation. But I think that that's also what allows us to sort of, when a story ends, especially for a play, for us to not hate the actor who plays the villain or the enemy,
Mm,
um, in it, because we know that there's this character had motive, whether we agree with it or not,
yeah,
and it's our sort of our job as we're giving ourselves to this story to try to understand that perspective, to understand where they're coming from.
yeah. That's my other play. That's my Everyday Monsters play for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
For it, the
Yeah, so
other,
let's
yeah.
move on to Everyday
Why
Monsters.
not? It was a good segue. Yeah.
Yeah, so I read both of these, and I was sitting here in my studio, and there was a moment for each one of them where I was like, wow, okay, and the play was made for me at this moment here.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. What is it? What was
Yeah.
it for? Without giving anything, I guess, away. What was it for Everyday Monsters?
Well, I think in general, sort of the reveal, like when it becomes clear that there's something deeper here,
Hmm.
and it's like because you're seeing you're just these personalities are just kind of playing themselves out, and you're just saying like, why are you like this? What are you hiding?
Hmm.
And what are you trying to ignore,
Yeah.
as well? And then once the truth comes out, you're sort of like, oh, and now you have to decide if you want to stay this course or change,
Right.
you know, um and to watch the characters struggle in those moments are always like, because you start thinking about what you would do,
Hmm.
and not necessarily, and uh and then however the character ends up on the other side of this, you're still thinking about how you would handle it,
Yeah.
and you just go, wow, there are so many ways that this could have gone. And it's just, i I just I was just saying like, oh, how do it makes me think like, how do you come up with the titles? How do you come up with the title of Everyday Monsters? What was it there? Was it there at the beginning, or did it sort itself out when you said, I'm going to write a story about XYZ, this and that?
Well, it's interesting because it actually started as a completely different play. The first time I wrote a play that lived in this world at all, it was very different. It was maybe 10 years ago, and it was called Old Monsters.
Mm,
Um, Involved serial killers, and it was a whole fucking mess. And I could never really make it work, and so I just like left it alone for a long time. And then I had an idea. It's a big moment of the play, so I won't reveal it. But I had this,
mm-hmm,
just this kind of divination of a moment of what it would be like if someone did something horrible to someone you love. Let's say
mm-hmm,
it's me, and my whatever did something horrible to my sister, and I go, yes, but I'm going to stay anyway. And
mm,
then so from that was the sort of germ, that was the seed that began this new version,
yeah,
um, and sort of having everyone be culpable, having everyone be bad, but everyone have wonderful redeeming qualities too. I spent a long time in New York City being a cater waiter, and I for reasons we just don't have enough time to. It's not that I'm hiding anything. I also happen
It's
to have,
like Jeffrey.
yeah,
I'm a waiter.
I
I'm
had,
a
but
cater waiter.
I also had so I worked these jobs like that, but I lived on the Upper East Side where a lot of these people lived. And
Hmm.
so I went places that these guests of these lavish parties also went in my just daily life. And I saw um, some of their behavior,
Hmm.
and I found it so fascinating that they could be awful.
Hmm.
And then also go to a party that night and pledge $150,000 to cure cancer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're not either or. The fascinating part is that they're both.
Hmm.
And and it was also very much inspired by the election of Donald Trump, et cetera, where the country became wildly polarized, and everyone was othering each other. Well, you do this
Yeah.
and you do that, and for me, who's more on the left, watching what I deem my party, the party what was always told to be the party of inclusion, being like, nah, fuck all y'all, and you do these horrible things, and living on the Upper East Side and watching all these people berate, the middle of the country as stupid or whatever, and or bad or backward. And I'm like, I see what you do every day. What are you talking about?
Mm.
And you are just as awful as they for different reasons. And so,
Yeah.
and it's this, it's the sort of quotidian nature of it all. It's like it's day in, day out, it's all the time. And so that's where everyday monsters came from. We're all,
Hmm.
it's this the monstrosity of everyday things, of we and everyday interactions. We are the agony and the ecstasy, right? We're Aristotelian. We're both good and bad. So
Yeah.
so that's where that came from. Also, the farm is made up of a lot of older people, and before the age of the internet, and when the trades were printed, uh, to be above the fold
Hmm.
was advantageous. And so you really wanted one of those first few letters of the alphabet. And Kevin is the gentleman on the farm who was really adamant about that. He's like, even though it's digital now, it's still advantageous because then people don't have to, they're not going to scroll past you because you're in the first 10 or whatever. And so,
Hmm.
uh, and I was like, oh well, that happens to coincide with what Kevin wants, so I'll do that. And it really is apropos. It wasn't I wasn't just trying to please Kevin. It really feels right. Of it's this sort of, and when you make it every day, is it really monstrous? So yeah, I'm happy with that title because it's very much speaks to what I'm trying to say. I think with the piece.
Hmm. Yeah, I was definitely sitting here saying, every gray monster as well. Because that's what happens. It's like, okay, you're doing all these good things. You're doing these good things over here, but when we find out about the thing that we don't accept that you're doing, now we have to make we feel like we have to make a decision, or
Right.
now we have new information we can't ignore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a tough spot. And ultimately, like many conversations I'll have with my partner, is that what I realized, and it kind of set me at ease, is that the world isn't black or white, it's gray.
Nothing but.
And there's never really a complete balance. We just believe until we learn something new, and then we're constantly changing, but we're sort of riding in this gray space. um
Absolutely. And I think for me, it's also like, it's not just that the world is gray, you're gray. Like for
mhm.
me, it's so easy for people to be like, yeah, the world is gray, and yet I am virtuous. And like, no, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
You, my friend, you are also gray. That is the point of the play, or at least I hope it is. Of like, it's not,
Yeah.
you don't escape that sort of categorization. You can pretend like you're virtuous, and the things you do that are maybe not great are just outliers, just once in a while. They're not
Mhm.
indicative of who you really are. And yet when
Yeah.
you see someone on on the news who does something, one thing, the whole thing of cancel culture, which we won't get into, but
Mhm.
someone missteps one time and you're like, that's it, eradicate them from the face of the earth. And I'm like, oh yeah, but yet when you step out of bounds, you should be given forgiveness. I understand. Okay. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
some of where it comes from too. I feel like I'm getting
Yeah,
so
like
political. Oh my God.
I like that moment at that award show we don't talk about.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it is so interesting how once you have that new information, you immediately throw away everything that gave you such a solid foundation up to that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, and
Except when
you
it's you.
almost yes, yeah, when it's you, you're like, yeah, but you find a justification for
Oh,
yourself,
of course.
and so it's always like that's what I love about reading a play. It's like you can find the justification in this, you know?
Right.
You don't have to actually be you don't have to actually side with one character or the other to understand where the characters are coming from,
Hmm. Yeah.
you know? And, it's a part I mean, for us being on the inside, we've gone through rehearsal processes, we've been directed, we've been directors. We know how to get to those spaces.
Yeah.
It's always an interesting challenge for a writer to um, hope that a reader gets there with what you put on the page,
Hmm.
and knowing that the play is a blueprint that allows other artists to interpret it and bring it to life
Yeah.
on that stage. Um, yeah. So, one other thing I had here it was about writing is rewriting,
Hmm.
and talk about the versions of these stories that you've gone through, and what sort of changes kind of make big changes for you.
Sure. Well, with Always Wild, the thing that's plagued me the most that I think I finally figured out, and when everyone sees the play on Broadway, uh, they'll know what I'm talking about. There's a bit of a ring comedy
Hmm.
towards the end that gave me a really hard time for I'd say the last 10 drafts.
Mm,
I was once told never tell people how many drafts you do, but whatever.
yeah.
Um, and I've done more than 10, I promise you. Um, that really and it's integral to all the characters, especially Perry.
Yeah.
And so once I finally figured that out, I figured him out, or maybe vice versa. I'm not sure, but they were kind of all Perry and that moment were tied up in one another. And when I finally figured out one, I figured out the other.
Hmm.
And it's a lot of like just rewriting and watching readings and seeing what works on in the moment, what trips up actors or doesn't, what they pick up on or they don't, and going back to the drawing board and being like, got to make it more obvious or got to make it less obvious or, um,
It's one line. It was so powerful, and the way I liken it is if I had turned away, if I had turned away and then heard that line, I'm now brought back into the story, and I realized something that I wasn't even paying attention to until that moment.
what can you say the line or
And
should you not say it?
well, I can't quote it, but I remembered as soon as I read it, I quoted it, I sent it to Mitch, and I read it, and I it was like a crying emoji
Oh, good.
that I put behind it because I was like that line right there, it says everything
Oh,
because
good.
he's Perry's angry about this revelation, and he comes up there to get it all sorted out, and then the way what he says and how he says it is like oh my god, oh my god, like
Okay.
you just realize what happens there. So I was sitting here like oh my
Oh, good, 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 good. I'm glad. I'm glad. I got a standing ovation
and
in a podcast. Yeah, yeah.
yes,
I
and
mean, and those
glad it
moments are
stayed in those
so
writings.
rarely written in the first draft. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's from refining and refining and refining and because I always liken it to sculpture. You know, like a first draft
Mm.
is just quarrying the giant block of marble, and then the other
Mm-hmm.
drafts, the subsequent drafts, are you actually chiseling away to get the sculpture that is within there out. You know, it's
Yeah.
like it's you got to get the marble first, and that's what a first
Mhm.
draft is you're just like hauling a giant hunk of rock out of the earth and setting it on a pedestal and being like, okay, it's here. Now the
Yeah.
real work begins, you know.
Mhm.
And same thing with Everyday Monsters. I literally just did a draft. What's today? The 7th. I finished one 2 days ago, and I finally brought something out that had been lurking in the background that I didn't even know about. It was like
Mm.
it's one of those things that, like when academics study writers and they find motifs. I'm always like, yeah, I guarantee you that writer didn't know that. They weren't like, and then this shall represent blah. It's just to them, a rose meant sorrow, and that's why there are roses every time someone cries. They didn't. I don't think they did it on purpose. It wasn't a really cerebral decision. It's more of a visceral decision. And so I think there was something in this play that was really visceral, that was just kind of lurking in the background. And with every subsequent draft, it was kind of becoming more clear that, is this what I'm saying? Like, is this there? I borrow from a very famous short story by Ursula K. Le Guin. I won't reveal it now because I want people to be surprised when it happens. But in the play, but there's a motif in that story, in her story, um, about a basement, and basements play a very large role in my play. And then I made a connection of what is in her basement and what's in mine,
Mm.
literally 4 days ago. Um, when I've been writing this play, like I told you, the first idea for this play was 10 years ago, even when it was totally different. And there was a basement there too. So the basement idea is not new. It took 10 years for this moment uh, to really crystallize and to become quite clear of like, oh, that's what that is. And then that had this trickle down effect and influences all the characters. Um,
Yeah.
and so that gave way to a couple of new moments that I hadn't thought of before that I think are super fun and scary. I mean, it's definitely, I don't know how it's a comedy that turns into a thriller. Um,
Mm.
and so yeah, so it's absolutely nothing but rewriting. I don't trust writers that are like, it just came to me fully formed, and I'm like, then that's probably why I didn't like it. I don't know what to tell you. Like because that's not possible, because we as humans are not fully formed, and if you're putting humans on stage, every day is a rehearsal. Every day is a refinement. Every day is we refine a story about ourselves or our past or our lover or whatever. Um, and so that's just not possible. I know
Yeah.
Edward Albee was famous for saying his characters lived with him for, years and years, if not decades, and then he'd put them on the page and he had very little to do, but he still did stuff,
Mhm.
uh, when he wrote a prelogue to Zoo Story, um, and brought it in, and they did it at second stage. He came in, and he had also edited Zoo Story, this amazing piece of theater. He was like, "No, I got more shit to say." So, or I don't like that line. I took it out. Whatever. I don't know what he
Yeah.
was like. I would have loved to, but so yeah, so it's absolutely so. To answer your question, finally, being verbose as I am, it's 100% rewriting,
Yeah.
but that's to me the easy part. Getting a first draft out is such a fucking pain. I'm
Mhm.
10 pages away from finishing a movie script. I've been 10 pages away for 4 months. I just
Mm.
it's the last 10% is 80% of it. But then you have the marble, and then you can start chiseling away, and that's easy because you take a little away here, you add something there, whatever. It's hauling the fucking block of earth out and onto a pedestal. That's the hardest part.
Oh, let's dig into that. You're 10 pages away from it. So did you not have the end in mind
That's
when
the
you were
thing.
writing?
The end is already done. It's the 10 pages
Mm.
leading up to the end. It's this piece of connective tissue from
Okay.
the kind of and end of the second act, beginning of the third act. We're talking film structure now, slash
Yeah.
beginning of the third act. That just the little bit of connective tissue that brings you, that forces the story into the climax rather than brings.
Mm.
Because I love the feeling of being propelled. through a story. And so
Yeah.
it's just that little bit of what happens that makes this final part beyond necessary and cathartic.
Yeah.
And so I just have to got to get it there. And then it's film, so like any, not like any, but in most films, the last part is, where a lot is happening, and so it's a lot of, really short, quick scenes of interior here, exterior there, interior here. So
Hmm.
it's more logistics than inspiration, and that's, I think,
Yeah.
what's keeping me from it. I'm like, oh my god, I had to just
And
constantly be vacillating between these two different scenes and ratcheting up the tension. It's just a lot of fucking work, and I don't want to do it.
and sometimes life has to happen.
Yeah.
You might end up sitting somewhere or you're in a moment and then you're like, "Oh my God, there it is.
Yep.
I gotta go.
Totally. Totally.
I gotta
Totally. I
go."
all the time. All the time. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel like one of the best things that's ever happened to me was the fact that my smartphone has a notes application.
Oh my God, I used to carry a notebook around with me before a smartphone
Mhm.
because I never wanted to lose stuff. A little moleskin in
Yeah.
my back pocket.
Mhm. I have quite a few of those as well, sitting on my shelf over here.
Yeah.
But now, what I realized I was doing is that I was building a database
Mm-hmm.
because all of my, I have a subset of notes called writing ideas,
Yep.
and so I will write into them, and I know that some of them are going to be repetitive, but when I'm ready to go back to them, I can probably just type in love
Mm-hmm.
and then pull up everything that references love
Yeah.
in that section and be like, "Oh my god, like this is so, you know, I'm so glad that I didn't really have a thought in mind for where any of that was going to go when I started writing it
Don't need to.
because now I'm looking back on like, over 400 individual little pieces of ideas that if I didn't capture them when I had that chance, that is like the the Bible,
Yeah.
that I can go to kind of simplify what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. It's
You
also
know.
like a map of your unconscious because you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
you can't keep track of all that. So then you look through 400 notes and you're like, I wrote the word longing a lot. I wonder why,
Yeah.
And
Uh
so
huh.
like that's the word that's there the most. If I make a concordance of it all, that's the word
Yeah.
that shows up, 1,000% more than any other word.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
I wrote permission.
That's interesting.
Permission was my word. Yeah, I felt like for a while I was looking for an okay,
Hmm.
you know, and I saw that in you know Oscar and Walt.
Yeah.
I saw that in their kind of interaction that they were at least between the two of them, were sort of seeking out. Well, Oscar more so was seeking out a it's okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'll be the one other person who knows. Maybe,
Right.
but
Maybe
Walt had his poker face on the whole time.
if we both admit it. Or
Yeah,
admit
yeah,
what? What are we even talking about? I don't know. I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a
So
thing.
I love the fact that you're writing every day. Is there a particular time that you're writing in the day? Is there a time that you find?
Anytime I can fit it in, um,
Hmm.
I think inspiration is bullshit. I mean,
Yeah.
right, by all means, write when you feel inspired, but
Mm-hmm.
the ideas that come when you're inspired versus the ideas that come when you're not, 2 weeks out, you're not going to be able to discern which is which. You're just not,
Yeah.
like you're not going to go, oh, when I was writing this passage, I was really inspired. You're not going to know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's playwright, WRIGHT, is the suffix that people use when that they fix to something. That means you're making something. It's a craft. You're affixing one thing to another, or you're fashioning something. So um, that's all it is. Don't, if you ask a blacksmith, like, do you feel inspired? You're like, no, I fucking just made it. I'm sure there are moments of inspiration and deep artistry, but most of the time it's just, no, I had a
Yeah.
thing to make, and so I made it because I knew I had to. So I cut this on Wednesday. I was inspired on Thursday, but you can't tell that my cut on Wednesday isn't just as good as my inspiration on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So So kind of just whenever I can fit it in. When I know I have like if I have a 2 hour period, I can get a lot done in 2 hours. I'm not someone who needs to write all day. So
Yeah. Especially when you set a timer. That's the longest 2 hours of your life.
yeah, for sure. And then of course by the end of those 2 hours you're like, what? That's it? That already went
That's
by?
it.
But you
Oh
get a lot
man.
done in 2 hours. And sometimes
Hmm.
it's good to stop before you start like running on fumes, at least for me.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. That is guidance I try to give all the time. I'm like, if you find yourself sitting there and you haven't put anything out,
just stop.
go do something else.
Yeah, totally.
Go do something else. And then when you get that idea, you can run back to it whenever you want. Like most of the time I think about um a lot of people get ideas in the shower,
Hmm.
because you can't write with pen and paper. You can't grab your phone. You're too concerned about like that being a problem, but you might have that idea and now you're sort of playing it in your head. I feel like I get my ideas while I'm sitting in the theater.
Oh, me
I'm
too.
sitting in the theater watching a
Constantly.
play, and I'll say, I'll have to say something in my head, like
Yep.
in residence,
Oh
window,
God,
window,
you're
window,
speaking my language. I do
residence,
that
window.
all the time. And then people are like, how'd you like to play? I'm like, I don't know. I have an idea. Leave me alone.
Yeah, and definitely, I love television that is very cerebral.
Hmm.
I like whodunits.
Oh, for sure.
I like dark, suspenseful, um, dramas that just like, oh my God, there's so much going on here. Oh, I saw that you had Mr. Robot credit.
I do. Yes, I was in Mr. Robot for
Yes,
an
it
episode.
was one of my favorite shows. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I love that so much. There were so many moments in that series where I was just like, Sam Esmail can do
Yeah, he was pretty cool.
no wrong whatsoever. Yeah, yeah, it was that was a great journey. Um, not that we're talking about that, but particularly the whole moment where Elliot's in prison. Uh,
I've never seen
that
it. Isn't that
that
crazy? I saw my episode
y-
and I've never watched it.
what?
I know.
Oh my God, you have to go watch
I
it.
know. There's
Go watch
so
it.
many shows to watch. It's like it's a full-time
Those
job.
three those three episodes when they make that reveal, it's just like, oh my God, you got us, and I'm here for the
I
rest.
love it.
Thank you so
I
much.
love it. I love it. I love big reveals.
So when you're not writing,
Mm.
dot dot dot.
Yeah, I mean, I have my day job. I have a partner at home of 12 years, so that takes up time. I like to cook.
Congratulations.
I love to read. I'm actually a pretty avid reader. I love working out. I go to the gym a lot, like lifting weights. Um, I always found bodybuilding interesting. I'm not a bodybuilder by any means, but the sort of ethos behind it and the aesthetic behind it is interesting and the history
Hmm.
thereof. Love to travel. Going to Portugal in a month. I like seeing my family. I like going to the theater. I like going to museums. Uh, I yeah, I like to watch shows, even though apparently I'm not watching the right ones. Uh, um, go to the movies, see friends, hang out. Yeah, I like to do it all. I like just a full life. Going out to dinner, just to like see people. I just like being around people and watching them um, yeah, and all that put together leads to a pretty full life. I got a good amount going on, a good amount of activity, and a
Yeah,
nice amount of downtime.
and you need all of that. That all gives you fodder to write.
Oh yeah,
And I during this pandemic, that was the one thing that got me. I did say at the beginning of 2020, I was like, something has to change. I need to figure out how to work from home. I was so generic about it.
yeah,
I said, I need to figure out how to work from home. There was a conversation. I've always had this background in IT and arts and culture. And I said, I have to figure out how to work from home. And then within 2 weeks,
boom,
it was panning itself out. And I was like, oh my God, well, this is what I wanted, but I was not thinking about it like this. I was thinking like, I want to have time to go have coffee with friends and have great conversations and whiz up to New York and come back and just have that experience
yeah,
because even when I lived I did live in the area for some time. I lived in Jersey City for about a year and a half, and I still took the train back to Philadelphia to cover theater when I was, cover theater as if I was still living here. And there were many questions like, why are you doing that? You're in New York.
Right.
But I loved the fact that that I had a system in place. I figured out how to do it. And I was like, some people are stuck in traffic for an hour. So, okay, like an hour on the train is not a big deal,
Nope.
not a big deal at all. And I'm going to be in a totally different place. And when I'm there, I'm going to make more time for the people who don't live right next to me, who are up under me all the time.
Yeah.
And I did. I think I did. I was really happy about that. But you know, there was a calling, and I came back here, and I'm happy to be here, but I there is a part of me that's very nomadic, where I'm thinking about like, where can I go
I hear
next?
you. I'm an itinerant guy myself. Yeah, I love Boston, and but I'm like I kind of I like bouncing around. I like having a home base, but
Mhm.
I like to bounce around.
Yeah. If the world were perfect, what would that look like for you?
Hmm. Well,
Is there such a thing?
yes and no. I don't think there'd be world peace because, unfortunately, it is because of conflict and strife and uh, pressure, et cetera, that we have art. Uh, and art is pretty great. So it would be enough pain that the pleasure feels good, enough pleasure that the pain feels necessary.
Mm.
I don't think I want any genocide. I think that's, I know it's a controversial take. I think, really big wars and things like that uh, could be gone. But then, who knows what life would look like because we've never had human history without it. So I don't know. It's not big. I'm not. Doesn't mean I'm pro that by any means. But it's just. It's that
Yeah,
would look
yeah.
very. Humanity would be very different, and I don't know what that would be like. So we're problem solvers. We're crisis managers. I think by nature. So without crisis, I really do wonder what we would do.
Hmm.
Our bottom teeth are only stay in our mouth because our top teeth provide tension. We thrive on tension.
Yeah,
So I don't know. But I think it would be enough of the bad that the good feels good, enough of the good that the bad feels necessary. Uh, enough pain for growth, but not enough pain for suffering. Maybe that's what it would be. Um, or not
Wh-
prolonged
what's
suffering.
interest what's interesting about that statement is that you probably find that's probably your mission now. Like, you probably seek that out as you go through life,
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I like.
finding some.
Well, because I mean, you're never going to eradicate death, so we're never going to be without that tension, and nor should we. I think I just finished
Hmm.
a play that deals very much with that, and as a man in his mid 30s who only has one parent left, I'm very acutely aware of mortality and how much
Hmm.
I don't want it to come for my mother, but uh, it is necessary. It has
Yeah,
to happen. So I think if we just have, even if we just had a world that where death was just true, I think that might actually provide enough tension to have art continue to be. Um, yeah, because I lost my father when I was young, and so there is the sort of like patina that time has put on that loss.
hmm,
Uh, there's this weird beauty to it, and I wouldn't be who I am without it.
hmm.
And so to get rid of that is to erase a large part of who I am. And so I don't think I'd want a world that erased that because um, so many of the things that I find beautiful in other people is their pain uh,
Yeah,
because it's how they dealt with it and continue to deal with it. That's the beautiful part. That's the interesting part, the powerful part. the you name it part. It's fascinating. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't want to eradicate pain or death because I just think that's not life. That's antithetical to our wiring. Life is precious because it's not permanent, you know? The
Yeah.
good is
Yeah.
precious because we know it's not forever. So I think that's what it would be. I would definitely want more people to be able to live the lives that they want. Um, I think too many people struggle in obscurity. Uh, Definitely enough. I don't like hunger. These all feel like such dumb things to say out loud because it's like, yeah, you fucking better not. But I live very close to a methadone clinic. I think eradicating addiction would be nice
Hmm.
because of seeing just the ravages it takes on people and their families. And um, yeah, I think I'd get rid of that. But you don't want to get rid of um, challenges. That's the hard part. And I'm not smart enough to know that balance because challenges is what makes people flourish, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what's beautiful about humanity is all that we're capable of. And oftentimes, I mean, this is what's hard about being some of the most beautiful art has come out of the most awful atrocities. You know, it's
Hmm.
like, do we want to get rid of the art? Because if we do, that means you got to get rid of the atrocity. And it's like, I mean, yeah, do I? Of course, I don't want the Holocaust to have happened. Who wouldn't wish that with three wishes? But then we wouldn't have Night by Elie Wiesel. We wouldn't have Schindler's List. We wouldn't have, I mean, just you name it all. And nor would you have um, all the stories of resilience that and bond a community together. It's so
Hmm.
hard. I don't know because of course you want to take pain away from people because it's awful, but pain is such a huge part of the human condition, you know.
Yeah.
So I guess with that vacillating back and forth, it would be getting rid of the really just atrocious crimes that we do one another, but not getting rid of pain or death in its entirety because you can't. Because without that, then we wouldn't appreciate sunsets. You know, we wouldn't
Yeah.
appreciate first kisses or last kisses or things like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to so much of what you said on so many levels. You know, lost my mother when I was 7,
oh wow,
and I it took a while for me to realize, like, I don't know that this life would be my life if that didn't happen.
yeah,
And then I had to think, like, maybe that was her only job, was
oh my
throwing me
god,
and my brothers, into the world.
yeah,
And so that just makes me say, well, I can't just sit around and pretend I have nothing to do.
mm,
It's like, I was, yes,
totally,
I was one of three that were brought here for a purpose.
absolutely,
And I don't have to know exactly what it is to know that I have one, to continue moving forward and in search of one.
mm,
I'm trying to be curious, and the benefit of hindsight is something that I value so much. Like, if I couldn't just look back and take stock on things, and I can remember a time where I just sort of felt like, why is all this happening? Why are these things happening? And like looking for someone or something to blame
yeah,
instead of saying, like, well, this happened, uh, how do you what if someone was telling you this happened to them?
yeah,
Like, what kind of guidance would you give them? And if you don't have any, how would you seek out guidance that you could share with them?
right,
Like, things like that. So I feel like, it took me a while, I guess somewhere in my early 30s, where I started thinking, I was like, maybe my general, like, if someone asked me who am I would say that I'm a curator.
mm,
I'm a curator of
I like
of
that.
thoughts and ideas. I ask questions. Um, I lost count of how many podcast interviews I've captured over the
No, that's
years,
wonderful.
but it's all conversations, and I look at all of this as one big master class that I continue to show up for.
Yeah,
And Yeah, and it's so valuable, and there are many times where I'll think like, oh, it's the end of the season, maybe it's a time to kind of take maybe this is the final bow,
Right.
and then I'll have another great interview, and I'm like, no,
Yeah,
this
there's
is
a play by Donald Margulies that I can't remember the name of all of a sudden, but it's about a photographer in the Iraq War. And I remember this one part so clearly. People are sort of berating this photographer for not stepping in uh,
mm,
during this like atrocity, like a small one, not a huge battlefield, but I think it was like one person was doing violence against another person, sort of thing. And she takes a picture of it, and then there's this whole conflict about that, and she is so adamant, and she's this beautiful line, and she stands her ground. She goes, "I took the picture," and like, you took the picture, like
hmm
you maybe I couldn't do anything about it, but I documented it. I let people know that it's
yeah,
there, and that's what you do.
hmm
And I think that's we need a lot. We need picture takers. We need people to document the stuff because otherwise it's gone.
yeah, yeah.
You take the
To the
picture.
curators.
You take the picture.
Oh my God, Grant, what a great
Yeah,
conversation this has been.
wonderful.
I really enjoyed
Me too.
this.
A whole lot. A whole lot.
And I hope this is the first of many conversations that we will have.
Me too.
I want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to
My pleasure.
chat with me about this. We were dancing around these two pieces, because we don't want to give it all away, but also, there's so much in here. So, like, whoever's listening, I'm going to tell you right now that Mitch was telling me that he's like, these have to be like 15 to 30 minutes, and I was like, no, they don't. It's a podcast.
Yeah, no, this is too much to talk about. Too much to talk about.
Yeah, like we'll find a sound, you can find a sound
Yeah,
bite or something,
exactly.
but there's a conversation that comes out of, and the thing I think that's also great about these is like sometimes I will just have some generic questions,
Hmm,
and I'm just paying attention to figure out where the conversation can go next,
totally.
being present in it. So you can't plan ahead of time that it's going to be boom, 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 boom,
No
boom.
way.
It's like this isn't a press junket.
Nope.
This is this is a conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I enjoyed this conversation. I think it's amazing, like your drive for writing. I saw that on the new play exchange that you have quite a few pieces there
I do.
for people to consider, which is great. It just blows my mind. Like one of the hardest things for me over the years has just been getting them out of my head, and I've said to myself, like, let me just try to, like, I do this with dreams too. Like I was like, let me just try to get that idea out of my head so that I can get to it later.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been doing for the most part in capturing. But even in last weekend, and I wrote best man speech for my best friend. We've been friends for over 20 years. Uh, that I started. It started out as a big paragraph. I mean, it was a huge paragraph, and then I took that and I simplified that. But
Hmm.
I had to write that big
Yeah.
paragraph first.
Got to get the block out.
And then yeah, and then many of the things I ended up saying in the speech, we had said throughout the day before I got to the speech. And I was like, "See, this is
I knew it. I
this
knew
is
it.
so this is right on point, and like right to the moment where I was walking into the room, I was adding things to it.
Good.
And it was like because my brain was going, and that's the value of writing every day, people. Write every
Right every
day,
day.
even if you write about
Yep.
nothing. I mean,
Just 10
that's
minutes.
what I learned from Morning Pages. Thank you,
Mm-hmm.
Artist Way was very helpful in doing that. But Grant MacDermott, thank you so much
Darnell,
for
thank you
taking the
so much. I
time to
appreciate
chat
it.
with
Of
me.
course.
Hold on. But this was truly a pleasure to chat with you today. Thank you.
Absolutely. You too.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another episode of The Business of Theater, a working title, with Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, colleague, or give us some social media love. This podcast is an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com/TBOT. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at EM3RYOTM.